Okay, so Liz, we're here today to talk about DPC and consenting. But first, can you tell us a little bit about you and how your practice relates to the water sector in general?
So I'm Liz Dunn. I'm a partner in the planning and compulsory purchase team at Burgess Salmon, and I've been involved in infrastructure consenting since the Planning Act regime came into force in 2010. So my practice covers, as I say, a broad range of infrastructure projects, and in the past few years that's included a number of water projects, as those have really come to the fore with a new tranche of large-scale water infrastructure projects across the country.
So some very, very specific and relevant experience for the conversation today. People, I don't think, would generally put DPC projects and consenting together in the same kind of remit of conversation, but it's not right not to think about them together, is it? We have to think about them combined and understand the connection.
We do, you're right, Katie. I suspect that when the DPC regime was envisaged and brought forward, it was probably on the basis that there wouldn't be a link between them. But there's a big challenge for particularly nationally significant infrastructure projects that come through or that are looking to use DPC to deliver their projects because of the wording of the Planning Act, which talks in the context of major water projects, so whether that's reservoirs or transfers, as those projects either being developed or constructed by a water undertaker. So you're clearly setting up a challenge from a statutory basis as to whether a project like that's then being delivered by a DPC complies with the legislation that is there to consent it. It's also been very interesting that neither the Water National Policy Statements nor the guidance that Ofwat has put out in respect of DPC has really sought to grapple with this issue that I know projects are having to on a kind of day-to-day basis as they think about how they're going to bring themselves forward in terms of consenting and obviously having to meet those statutory requirements.
Okay, so very much like the conversation I had with Mike, where it's really important for us to understand the regulatory regime and how that impacts and not think about DPCs in silos. We have to understand the planning regime and consenting regime and how that impacts on the DPC model.
Exactly, and it's very interesting how those different elements really come forward, as it's also a relevant consideration for the rapid process as well. So that looks at and really envisages early sort of indications as to whether these projects are going to be DPC projects or not. And often that rapid process is taking place before the DCO process or the consenting process has really got running. So it's a very real issue for a number of the projects that we're working on at the moment, where projects are having to make some pretty early decisions about which consenting route they're going, then where the challenges are for those routes. In some cases, when they've already decided, we think this project is going to be suitable for DPC, and in other cases I think just relying on the Ofwat guidance, which it says actually most of these large-scale projects are going to be ones that they will be looking to be brought forward by DPC.
Okay, so you've talked about how the current challenges for the projects that you're working on, DPC projects that you're working on. How do we think that might change as we go forward through the process?
I think we were hoping that there might be some clarity coming forward. There are changes coming through with the new government to the Planning Act, and I think we were hoping that there might be some greater clarity through that in terms of how those particular criteria could be met, perhaps slight change in the drafting of the Planning Act in respect of those water categories. That hasn't come forward. We were also hoping there might be some clarity from the Water National Policy Statements, which would also sort of provide that sense of direction for projects in terms of how they could use DPC as part of the process. Again, that didn't happen. So I think we're now looking to the Ofwat revised guidance, which we're anticipating is going to be coming out in the summer, to really be providing clarity for projects in respect of whether and to what extent these very large infrastructure projects, from a consenting perspective, can actually be delivered by DPC lawfully.
So lots to think about now for projects, but lots to think about in the future too.
Absolutely, and I know that a number of the water companies are lobbying DEFRA and Ofwat quite hard on this, because it's really important from their perspective that there is clarity in terms of how a third-party body like DPC can be brought in either at the early stage or later, further down the line, to deliver these projects, and that they're being consented, lawfully and taking the right route.
Okay, so some real issues currently for projects that are being progressed through the system, but also issues to think about in the future as projects play out.
Yeah.